What the frick is up, everybody? Happy Monday. Quick Halo video coming. Over the last few days, the Halo community has been talking about this Kotaku article with Phil Spencer. Because, specifically, there's one little chunk here. Phil gets asked if Microsoft would consider offering Halo Infinite's campaign at a different time than multiplayer, if one is complete before the other. He replies, Bonnie and the team will drive those decisions, but I think we want to make sure people feel like they have a Halo experience. I think we can look at options like that. So yeah, I think that's something to think about, but we want to make sure we do it right. And while being a longtime Halo fan, right, since the original Halo CE, I'm definitely in the camp that I would love the campaign and multiplayer experience to be next to each other, release complete next to each other as they have been. This video is going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate, right? What if they didn't do that? Or what if they did that a little differently? Could there be advantages to releasing and managing the game in two different chunks? Halo is effectively like 3 or 4 games in one, right? You have the multiplayer experience, you have the campaign experience. Even within multiplayer, you have like the competitive multiplayer experience and the social multiplayer experience, which and there's even tiers to the competitive, right? There's ranked, and then there's the HCS, or in the past MLG experience, which has been tailored somewhat, modified sandbox or something. And then on top of that, you have stuff like Forge. It's like 3 or 4 games into one, and the Halo fan base some enjoy like the entire range of things. I personally consider myself to be there. I don't do a ton of Forge, but outside of that, like, I play all of the things. But there are a lot of people who just funnel into one or maybe 1 or 2 areas of that. And I personally know several people who are longtime Halo fans who essentially just ignore the campaign section on a Halo game. They just jump in it for Halo 5 last generation. You just spend all your time in that multiplayer row. You don't even go to the campaign. And, 343 knows this. They know they have sort of 3 or 4 games into one. They know that they have pressure to launch the complete package day one, and that's what a lot of fans are expecting. But is 343 handicapped by having to make sure that all the changes and updates they make to the game serve all of these communities well? I think so. For example, I want to play this clip from the Eavesdrops podcast from Hex. He is the co-CEO of NRG. He is talking to Lethal, arguably one of the best Halo players ever, especially over the last decade, and I think the most financially successful Halo esports player ever. And they are in the middle of a conversation discussing sort of what Lethal would kind of like to see out of the HCS program, what issues he sees, and yeah, listen to this.
Issue with 343 and Halo and HCS and all that in general is how many like hoops they have to jump through for everything, no matter what, when it comes to updating the game, adding something, fixing something, stating something.
Housekeeping is something that they have to fucking do regardless, though.
But like, I don't know, their way of doing things, it pisses me off. It's so annoying. Like they only seem to do things once the entire ladder and chain of command has been, gone up, like email after email, and it takes so long for them to do anything, basically, no matter how small, no matter how big. And
so Lethal feeling like this sometimes from the update. So Lethal describes him feeling that 343 has to jump through a lot of hoops to make changes happen for HCS, and he also talks about sort of wishing they could get updates as fast as other games. If you look at another game like, let's say, Apex compared to Halo, if you want to make a sandbox change for multiplayer, we can just imagine there are probably going to be more design and hoops to jump through before you get something like that approved. You want to change the battle rifle? Well, how does that affect the PvE balancing and campaign and like firefight? You want to change the rifle? What lore explanation might we need for that? Is this a new iteration of the battle rifle? Where does that fit into the universe? And that's just a few high-level things on top of just balancing the gun for competitive play. You also see, like, at the end of the HCS time frame in Halo 5, at least, you had a playlist in Ranked that was just the HCS, sort of proposed HCS settings with no ground pound and no Spartan charge along with the other Spartan abilities. So it was like a different mechanic set for that playlist. I think what Lethal is saying is something other pros have stated, is that the way Halo 5 was updated was lacking. They wish the game was updated faster, that more things were tried with the mechanics and the sandbox balancing, and that things just didn't happen fast enough. The arena multiplayer in Halo Infinite was balanced independently of, let's say, the social modes, the campaign experience. Could you make changes faster? I think you could. And what about on the campaign side? If you were segregated, could you introduce like game-breaking guns or just different mechanics that could break things in PvP, especially competitive PvP, but not, be fun in the PvE space? Like, now that we know that Halo Infinite's multiplayer is going to be free, when you actually have the game installed, what's it going to look like? Like, will you have multiplayer here? I'm assuming you're going to have Halo Infinite in the store listed as free. You download it, you come into here, you'd have multiplayer available, for example, maybe Forge, Firefight, like all of these options would be there, and campaign would sort of be grayed out, or maybe not you to like click into it. You'd have some missions available or whatever, but they'd all be grayed out, like kind of like Halo 4 and cross game playlist is here. And if you clicked on it or something, it would say, hey, you need to install this from the page. Similarly as to if you were trying to download new content in the existing MCC, when you're looking at the installed games, it'll tell you like, hey, so you need to go install more. On Xbox, I think it kicks you straight to the store, and then there you're prompted to install the campaign at a certain price. I think there's going to be a lot of people who just leave that campaign section grayed out. And can I just say, I think going free to play puts great pressure on making sure that the multiplayer and campaign experiences are both great. You have really got to create something compelling on the campaign side of things to make somebody who's just a multiplayer main want to switch over and also purchase campaign if they're a new player to Halo. And the success of the free-to-play model is predicated on your ability to be able to engage and keep players playing and investing in your ecosystem. And your multiplayer's got to be good if you want people sort of spending money in there. Anyway, it's a little bit of a tangent. I just want to wrap up by saying this is just trying to propose some of the benefits that could happen if things were segregated. Overall, though, right, there's multiple ways that you can tackle these problems. I think one way is like what you saw in the end half of Halo 5, where they were introducing like rec variants into arena, like the gunfighter Magnum or whatever, to try and mix up the sandbox to some extent. That seemed like a valiant attempt at trying to make things better for multiple parts of the community, right? The war zone, the social aspect of things, got a cool new gun to play with, and on the competitive side, there was something that filled a new niche that they thought maybe they were missing. Although the gunfire Magnum did come and go, but just to say, just to use as an example, there are different ways they can solve these problems, and that maintaining, as has been said extensively by other Halo YouTubers, especially Favin, go check his videos out on this if you are interested. But balancing and maintaining essentially two different copies of two versions of Halo moving forward is a lot of work, and that's a divergence of resources. You're going to eventually have like an arena team, a multiplayer team, and a not multiplayer team, and how they decide to drive those experiences in both ways. It gives maybe more flexibility on both sides for those experiences to be what they want them to be. At that point, there'd be an even greater divide between the experiences in the Halo games. But again, now that multiplayer is free to play, maybe that's okay. You have to make a significant investment now to jump into the campaign experience on the first hand. So maybe you're more okay with the fact you've already sort of committed to experiencing the campaign. Having to maybe learn new mechanics and stuff isn't going to be as big of a deal. That's different than like if it's a $60 experience and you're like jumping from multiplayer, which is sort of more classic feeling, pickup based kind of gameplay, and then you switch over into campaign where you have double jump and you have a jetpack and all this kind of crazy stuff. Again, if you are just jumping in between of those in the $60 game, you might be more startled, like, what the heck's going on? This is like totally different thing. But if you've already sort of committed to buying the campaign and entering, I don't know, maybe you'd be more okay, psychologically with that there are changes. You've kind of bought a new game, effectively. You've bought a new game, and now it plays differently. So what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments, and just trying to be a little bit devil's advocate here. More Halo videos coming. Shadow of Reach, big time Halo book with some post Halo 5, pre Halo Infinite goodness. Apparently, all of the guys who have the early copy are saying it's great, it's fantastic. Troy Denning's done a fantastic job with the previous entries he's written. Until then, let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think Halo should get segregated? Do you think there should be a campaign and multiplayer divergence starting with Halo Infinite in gameplay and update structure? What do you think? Let us know, and
We'll see you next time.